Give it back. Emily Carter's whisper barely disturbed the midnight silence, but the enormous white wolf at her bedroom window froze as if she had shouted. Moonlight spilled across the floor of her tiny cottage, turning his fur almost silver, and between his teeth hung the faded blue scarf that had belonged to Emily's mother. For 7 nights, something had entered her home. First her wool glove disappeared, then a ribbon, an old handkerchief, a wooden comb, and 3 other small belongings that meant nothing to anyone but her. Tonight, Emily had finally caught the thief. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in courage and destiny, hit like and subscribe. These stories remind us, love finds the broken. Now back to Emily. She slowly pushed aside her blanket, keeping her movements careful. The wolf stood nearly 3 feet tall at the shoulder, far larger than any ordinary animal she had seen around Silver Creek. Yet nothing about him felt wild. His pale blue eyes watched her with an intelligence that made her heartbeat quicken. You don't want food, she murmured. You don't touch anything valuable. So why that? One white ear flicked toward her voice. Emily took another step. The scarf carried almost no scent anymore, but she remembered her mother wearing it on cold November mornings, before illness had taken her and left Emily alone in a pack that already considered an omega without a proper shift in embarrassment. It was the one thing Emily could not bear to lose. Please. Her voice softened. That belonged to my mom. Something changed in the wolf's eyes. For one strange second, Emily thought he understood every word. He lowered his head, and hope stirred inside her. Then he turned and slipped through the open window. Seriously? Emily rushed forward. By the time she reached the glass, the wolf had landed silently in the grass 8 feet below. He looked back once. Not frightened. Not hurried. Waiting. Then he disappeared between the pine trees. Emily stared into the darkness, stunned. He had done that before. Every morning after something vanished, she had found enormous paw prints outside, but they always disappeared near the forest trail. She had told the pack guards. They laughed. One suggested she was hiding her own possessions for attention. Another asked why any creature would bother stealing from a rejected omega who owned almost nothing. Emily had stopped asking for help after that. But tonight was different. Tonight he had taken her mother's scarf. And tonight, for the first time, she had seen his face. Emily hurried downstairs and pulled open the cottage door. Cold mountain air swept across her skin. For several seconds there was nothing except moonlight and the whisper of pine branches. Then she noticed something lying on the doorstep. A single white moonflower, perfectly fresh despite the late fall cold. Emily bent and picked it up. Beyond the yard, 2 pale blue eyes appeared between the trees. The white wolf was still there, watching her, waiting again. Emily tightened her fingers around the flower. You want me to follow you, she whispered. The wolf turned toward the forbidden northern woods, the blue scarf still held gently between his teeth, and began to walk. Emily stood on the doorstep until the white wolf vanished between the pines, leaving only the moonflower trembling in her hand and a trail of enormous paw prints silvered by moonlight. Every instinct told her to follow him, but the northern woods began less than half a mile beyond her cottage. Past the weathered boundary stones every member of Silver Creek had been warned never to cross. Emily looked down at the flower. Moonflowers did not bloom this late in the year. They certainly did not grow anywhere near her home, yet its petals were fresh and cool against her fingers. By morning, the mystery felt almost foolish beneath ordinary daylight. Emily carried the flower into Silver Creek Village and found 2 pack guards outside the general store. The wolf came back, she told them. Mason Reed glanced at his partner and sighed. The white one again. I saw him this time. He took my mother's scarf. Mason folded his arms. Emily, wolves steal food. Maybe shoes if they smell interesting. They do not collect scarves and combs. A few people nearby heard him, and quiet laughter followed. Emily felt the familiar heat climb into her cheeks. I know what I saw. Then lock your window, someone called. More laughter. Emily lowered her gaze for only a second before forcing it back up. She had spent years being treated as if everything about her required an apology. Her weak shift, her quiet scent, the mating ceremony where nobody had chosen her. Rejected Omega had become less a description than a name people used when they thought she could not hear. Mason noticed the flower in her hand. Where did you get that? His amusement disappeared. Emily instinctively closed her fingers around it. Why? Moonflowers grow north of the boundary. The street suddenly seemed quieter. Nobody from Silver Creek goes there anymore. Why not? Mason looked toward the dark ridge beyond the village. Old pack territory. Nothing there worth finding. His answer came too quickly. Emily noticed. She also noticed the older woman behind the store window making a small protective gesture when she saw the flower. By sunset, Emily had made her decision. She returned home, latched the window, and placed a strip of red ribbon on the table where it could easily be seen. Then she climbed into bed fully dressed beneath the blankets and waited. Midnight came. Nothing. 12:30. Silence. At 12:47, the latch lifted without breaking. Emily kept her breathing slow. Her white paws touched the floor with impossible softness. Through barely opened eyes, she watched the wolf approach the table. He studied the ribbon, then looked directly toward her bed. Emily stopped breathing. The wolf walked past the ribbon. Instead, he reached toward her chair and gently took the small silver necklace she had removed before pretending to sleep. Her mother's necklace. Again, Emily almost sat up, but something stopped her. The wolf turned toward the window, paused, and looked back at her. Those pale blue eyes held hers through the darkness. He knew. He had known she was awake from the moment he entered. Then, almost deliberately, he stepped through the window and disappeared outside. Emily threw off the blanket, grabbed her coat, and ran after him. The white wolf was already 20 yards ahead, moving slowly enough for her to keep him in sight. He was not escaping. He was leading her, past the final cottage, past the last lantern, straight toward the forbidden northern boundary. The white wolf stopped at the boundary stone and looked back at Emily as if asking whether she truly meant to follow. She stood 20 feet away, breathing hard from the run, her coat hastily buttoned and her mother's silver necklace still hanging gently from his mouth. Beyond him, the northern woods seemed different from the familiar forest around Silver Creek. The trees grew taller there, their branches woven together beneath the moon, and the narrow trail disappeared into a darkness no village lantern could reach. "You planned this," Emily whispered. The wolf tilted his head. She almost laughed despite herself. "Do not pretend you do not understand me." His ears lifted. Emily stared at him. "You do understand me." The wolf turned and crossed the boundary. Emily hesitated only a moment before stepping over the weathered stone after him. Nothing happened. No ancient warning sounded. No mysterious force pushed her back. There was only cold air, pine needles beneath her boots, and the white wolf walking slowly enough for her to follow. For nearly 10 minutes, he led her deeper into the forest. Whenever Emily fell behind, he stopped. Whenever she caught up, he continued. He was guiding her with unmistakable patience, and somehow that frightened her more than being chased ever could. "Where are you taking me?" No answer, of course. Eventually, the trail divided beside a fallen cedar. The wolf went left. Emily stopped. "No." He turned. "I am not walking deeper into forbidden woods with a thief who refuses to explain himself." The absurdity of arguing with a wolf struck her only after she said it. His pale eyes remained fixed on her. Then he placed the necklace carefully on the ground. Emily blinked. She moved forward, but the moment she reached for it, he picked it up again and stepped backward. "That is not funny." Something remarkably close to mischief flashed in his eyes. Emily straightened. "Fine. Keep it." She turned around. 3 steps later, she heard soft paws behind her. She kept walking. The wolf followed. Emily glanced over her shoulder. He stopped. She walked again. He followed again. "So now you are following me." The wolf sat down. For the first time in days, Emily smiled. It surprised her how easily it came. Then a distant bell echoed through the trees. Once. Twice. The wolf rose instantly, every trace of playfulness gone. Emily recognized the sound. Silver Creek's midnight warning bell. Someone had discovered she was missing. Voices soon carried faintly through the forest. Lantern light flickered far behind them. The wolf moved close to Emily and gently pressed his shoulder against her hand, urging her away from the trail. "They are looking for me." His gaze shifted toward the approaching lights, then toward the deeper woods. Emily understood the choice he was offering. Return to people who had laughed at her, or trust the impossible creature who had stolen 7 pieces of her life and somehow treated each one as precious. She looked at her mother's necklace between his teeth. "One more chance," she whispered. "Show me why." The wolf immediately turned north. This time he moved faster. Emily followed until the search voices faded behind them, and the forest opened onto a small clearing washed in moonlight. The wolf stopped beside an ancient pine. At its roots lay something Emily recognized. Her missing wooden comb. Beside it rested her glove. Then the ribbon. Then the handkerchief. Every object he had taken was there, arranged carefully around a bed of pine branches. Emily slowly approached. "You kept everything." The wolf lowered her necklace beside the others. Emily crouched, confused by the strange tenderness of it all. Then she noticed the object beneath her scarf. A corner of yellowed paper. She pulled it free. It was an old charcoal portrait of a young woman standing beneath a moonflower tree. Emily's breath disappeared. The woman had her eyes, her face, her mother's necklace. At the bottom, written in faded ink, were 4 words that made Emily's hands tremble. Eleanor Carter and her daughter. Emily read the words again. Certain exhaustion had rearranged them in her mind. Eleanor Carter and her daughter. Her mother's name. Her family name. Yet the portrait looked older than Emily herself. Its paper yellowed at the edges, and its charcoal lines softened by years of careful handling. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. The white wolf watched her from beside the ancient pine. Emily turned the portrait over. A faded royal seal had been pressed into one corner, almost invisible beneath the stains of time. She had seen that symbol only once before, stamped on an old proclamation hanging inside Silver Creek's meeting hall, a crowned wolf beneath a crescent moon. Royal territory. Her pulse quickened. "You knew my mother." The wolf lowered his head. Emily stared at him. "How?" He stepped toward the pine and pushed aside a curtain of hanging branches with his shoulder. Behind them, nearly hidden beneath moss and vines, stood a narrow wooden door built directly into the hillside. Emily had passed within a few yards of it without noticing. The wolf nudged the door open. Warm golden light appeared inside. Emily remained where she was. "You steal my belongings, lead me across a forbidden boundary, show me a portrait of my mother, and now you expect me to walk into a hidden room?" The wolf looked back at her. "You really need to learn how conversations work." His tail moved once against the ground. Emily almost smiled again, but the portrait in her hand made that impossible. She followed him inside. The hidden chamber was small, perhaps 12 feet across, with stone walls and shelves filled with books, folded maps, and sealed wooden boxes. Nothing looked abandoned. A lantern burned on a table. Fresh water filled a ceramic bowl. Someone lived here. Emily slowly turned toward the wolf. "This is yours." He crossed to a wooden chest and touched it with one paw. Emily opened the lid. Inside were old letters tied with blue cord. She lifted the first envelope and froze. Eleanor Carter was written across the front. Her mother's name again. Emily reached for the letter, then stopped. Did she write these? The wolf gave no sign. Were they written to her? Still nothing. Frustration tightened Emily's throat. She had spent most of her life accepting unanswered questions because Silver Creek preferred silence whenever she asked about her mother's past. Eleanor had supposedly arrived in the pack alone, raised Emily quietly, and died without leaving anything except a few possessions and memories. Now a secret room beyond forbidden territory held an entire chest connected to her. Emily picked up the oldest letter. Before she could open it, voices sounded outside. "Emily, Mason Reed." Closer than before. Another voice answered from the trees. "Check the clearing." Emily looked toward the door. The white wolf immediately extinguished the lantern with a careful sweep of his paw, plunging the chamber into darkness. Emily heard Mason approaching. "She crossed the boundary," he called. "Find her before she sees anything." Emily went still. Before she sees anything. Not before she gets hurt. Not before she gets lost. The wolf moved beside her, silent and protective. Through a narrow crack around the door, lantern light passed across the clearing. "Emily Carter." Mason called again, but there was something different in his voice now. Urgency. Fear. Emily looked down at the unopened letter in her hand. For the first time, she understood that Silver Creek had never been protecting her from the northern woods. They had been protecting the northern woods from her questions. Emily held the letter against her chest as Mason's lantern light swept across the narrow crack beneath the hidden door. The white wolf stood perfectly still beside her, but she could feel the tension in him now, not anger, but recognition. "There is nothing here." Another guard called from the clearing. Mason did not answer immediately. His boots moved across the pine needles, stopping only a few feet away. Check toward the ridge, he finally said. I will search this area. The other footsteps faded. Emily looked at the wolf. His pale blue eyes remained fixed on the door. Then Mason spoke again, much quieter. Emily, if you are here, listen to me. Some secrets stay buried because people are safer that way. Her breath caught. He knew. She nearly opened the door, but the wolf gently placed one paw over the edge of her coat. The gesture was so deliberate that Emily froze. Outside, Mason waited several seconds before walking away. Only when his lantern glow disappeared did the wolf move. Emily whispered, "You knew he would come." The wolf crossed toward the table and nudged the letter in her hand. All right. Emily relit the lantern and carefully untied the blue cord around the bundle. The first letter was addressed to Eleanor, but the signature at the bottom made Emily's pulse stumble. Adrian Blackwood. She knew that name. Everyone did. Alpha King Adrian Blackwood had vanished months ago, leaving the Northern Territories governed by his royal council, while rumors spread from pack to pack. Some said he had abandoned the throne. Others believed he was searching for something no one else understood. Emily looked slowly toward the white wolf. He simply watched her. "Do you belong to him?" she asked. His ears shifted. It was not an answer, but suddenly the royal seal, the hidden chamber, and the carefully preserved letters felt connected. Emily opened another letter. Most of the ink had faded, but one sentence remained clear. Eleanor, Silver Creek must never learn what Emily inherited. Emily stopped breathing. Her name, written years ago. She read farther, but several lines had been damaged by moisture. Only fragments remained. Moonflower bloodline, the northern bond, and when she is ready. Emily lowered the page. My mother lied to me. The thought hurt more than she expected. Then she corrected herself. No, she was hiding something. The wolf came closer and rested his head lightly against her hand. Emily looked down at him. Nobody in Silver Creek had offered comfort when Eleanor died. They had brought food, spoken polite words, then returned to treating Emily like an inconvenience. This strange creature had somehow understood her sadness without hearing an explanation. Is that why you took my things? She whispered. Because they smelled like her? The wolf stepped away and moved toward the back wall. He pushed against a wooden panel Emily had mistaken for shelving. It opened into a second chamber. Cold moonlight poured through an opening in the ceiling. Emily entered slowly and stopped. Her missing possessions were arranged around a circular stone marked with the same crowned wolf symbol. But that was not what stole her breath. Covering the wall were dozens of charcoal drawings. Emily at 16 beside the village well. Emily at 18 carrying firewood. Emily alone after the mating ceremony. Emily outside her cottage only weeks ago. Someone had been watching her for years. At the center hung one final portrait, newer than the others. Emily stood beneath a full moon beside a tall man with dark hair and pale eyes. Beneath it were two handwritten words. My mate. Emily turned toward the white wolf. Who are you? For the first time, he looked away. The white wolf backed away from Emily, and for the first time since she had met him, uncertainty entered those pale blue eyes. No, Emily said softly. You do not get to disappear now. She pointed toward the portrait. Someone has been watching me for years. Someone knew my mother. Someone wrote that I was his mate before I even knew his name. I deserve an answer. The wolf lowered his head. Then a sound drifted through the hidden chamber. A bell. Not Silver Creek's warning bell this time. This one came from deeper in the northern woods, low and distant, followed by another answering call from the ridge. The wolf immediately turned toward the entrance. Emily felt the change in him. His shoulders stiffened. His ears angled forward. Whatever that signal meant, he recognized it. What is happening? A faint light moved between the trees outside. Then another. Several lanterns were approaching from the north, while Mason and the Silver Creek guards were somewhere behind them to the south. Emily suddenly understood that they were caught between two groups. The wolf moved to the doorway and looked back at her. I am not leaving those letters. Emily gathered the bundle and tucked it beneath her coat. She took the portrait of her mother too. The wolf waited until she finished, then led her through the second chamber toward a narrow passage Emily had not noticed. It opened behind the hillside, facing a shallow creek nearly 50 yards away. They slipped outside beneath the trees. Voices carried from the ridge. Search every shelter, a man ordered. The king has been here. Emily stopped. The king. She looked at the wolf. He nudged her forward urgently. They crossed the creek and climbed toward a grove of white birch trees. Emily's boots slid on damp leaves, but the wolf stayed beside her, matching her pace instead of racing ahead. The lanterns behind them grew brighter. Then a voice called, "There!" Emily turned. 3 strangers stood across the creek wearing dark traveling coats marked with a silver crest she did not recognize. None approached her, but their attention fixed immediately on the white wolf. "Your Majesty," one man called. Emily's entire body went still. The wolf stepped in front of her. "Your Majesty," she whispered. The strangers exchanged startled looks. One reached inside his coat, and the wolf gave a low warning growl. The man stopped immediately and raised both empty hands. "We are not here for the Omega," he said. "We only need the king returned to the capital." Returned. Emily stared at the white wolf beside her. Every impossible detail suddenly rearranged itself. The royal seal, Adrian Blackwood's letters, the hidden shelter, the drawings. "My mate, Adrian," she whispered. The wolf's ears moved at the name. Before Emily could process what that meant, another lantern appeared behind the strangers. Mason stepped into the grove from the opposite trail, breathing hard. His expression changed when he saw Emily standing beside the wolf. "Emily, come away from him." She did not move. "You knew," she said. Mason's face tightened. "Your mother made us promise." "Promise what?" "To keep you away from Blackwood." The wolf pressed closer to Emily, positioning himself between her and everyone else. Mason looked almost afraid. "You do not understand what happens if the bond wakes." Emily felt something warm pulse beneath the silver necklace in her pocket. Once, then again. The white wolf turned toward her, startled by the same invisible sensation. Emily's heartbeat answered it. The moonlight above them seemed suddenly brighter. "What bond?" she whispered. Mason's silence told her more than any answer could. Then the white wolf staggered backward. A pale glow moved across his fur like moonlight beneath water. Emily reached for him instinctively. "Adrian." The wolf looked directly into her eyes as the light grew brighter, and for the first time, Emily heard a voice that did not come from anyone standing in the grove. It came quietly through the strange warmth between them. "Do not be afraid of me, Emily." Emily knew the voice belonged to him before her mind could explain how. It carried through the strange warmth beneath her ribs, quiet and steady, while the white wolf stood only a few feet away beneath the moon. "Adrian," she whispered. His pale eyes softened. The glow surrounding him brightened, folding around his body until Emily had to shield her eyes. There was no frightening sound, no violent movement, only a rush of cold air through the birch leaves and a sudden stillness afterward. When Emily lowered her hand, the white wolf was gone. A man stood in his place. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a simple dark shirt and black trousers, as though the magic had restored what belonged to him along with his human form. Dark hair fell loosely across his forehead, and his face carried the tiredness of someone who had spent too long hiding from the world. But his eyes were unmistakable, pale blue, watchful, familiar. Emily stared at him. "You stole my wooden comb." Of all the things she could have said, those were the words that escaped. Adrian blinked. Then something almost like embarrassment crossed the face of the most powerful alpha in the Northern Territories. "My wolf stole your wooden comb. Your wolf is you." That argument has been troubling me for months. Emily nearly laughed, but the weight of everything around them stopped her. The strangers across the creek lowered their heads. "Your Majesty," one said. Adrian barely glanced at them. His attention remained on Emily. Mason stepped forward. "This should never have happened." Adrian's expression cooled. "You mean she should never have learned the truth?" Her mother wanted her protected. Her mother wanted her choice protected. Emily looked between them. "Stop talking about me like I am not standing here." Both men fell silent. That surprised her more than it should have. Emily pulled Eleanor's letter from beneath her coat. "What did my mother know about you?" Adrian's gaze dropped to the faded paper. "Enough to know that our families were connected long before either of us was born." "And the drawings?" His jaw tightened. "Mine." Emily felt a sharp disappointment. "So you were watching me. From a distance. That does not make it better." "I know." He did not defend himself. The simple admission unsettled her. Adrian took one step backward, deliberately giving her space. "I first came to Silver Creek years ago because Eleanor asked me to watch over you if anything happened to her. I never approached you. I believed staying away was the safest choice. Emily looked toward the portraits hidden beyond the trees. Until 7 nights ago. Adrian glanced down, almost reluctantly, until my wolf stopped agreeing with me. Despite everything, Emily remembered the flower, the ridiculous game with the necklace, and the careful arrangement of her belongings. Why did he take them? Adrian was silent long enough for Mason to look uneasy. Because he recognized your scent, Adrian finally said. And because being near anything that carried it allowed me to become human for a little longer. Emily's anger gave way to confusion. Allowed you? Adrian looked toward the moon. I did not leave my throne, Emily. I lost the ability to return to it. The royal men exchanged troubled glances. Adrian continued softly. Months ago, I became trapped in my wolf form. Every healer failed. Every ritual failed. Then one night, I passed your cottage, and for the first time in months, the curse weakened. Emily touched the necklace through her coat. The warmth beneath it pulsed again. Because of me? Because of the bond. Mason shook his head. Adrian, do not. Emily turned sharply. He has hidden enough. Adrian met her gaze. Then you should hear everything. He extended his hand, but stopped before reaching her. He did not command. He did not claim. He simply waited. Your mother did not hide you because you were a weak Omega, he said. She hid you because Silver Creek knew exactly what you were capable of becoming. Emily stared at Adrian as if the ground beneath the birch trees had shifted. Capable of becoming what? Mason answered before Adrian could. A moonbound Omega. Emily looked at him blankly. That means nothing to me. Because we made certain it would not, Mason said, and shame softened his voice. Your mother came to Silver Creek when you were an infant. She asked the elders to hide your bloodline, suppress every record connected to your family, and raise you as ordinary. Emily almost laughed. Ordinary? You spent years telling me I was less than ordinary. Mason lowered his eyes. Adrian's expression hardened, but Emily lifted a hand before he could speak. She did not need anyone fighting her battles now. Keep going. Mason swallowed. Moonbound Omegas were never weak. Their gifts were simply different. Their wolves matured slowly, sometimes never shifting in the way other wolves expected. But they could strengthen ancient bonds, calm unstable transformations, and recognize what existed beneath another wolf's nature. Emily thought of Adrian standing before her in human form. That is why the curse weakened around me. Adrian nodded. Yes. And my mother knew? She knew what would happen if powerful packs discovered your gift, Adrian said. They would see usefulness before they saw you. His words landed quietly because Emily understood them immediately. Her entire life, Silver Creek had judged her for what she could not provide. Another world might value her only for what she could. Neither sounded like freedom. She looked at Mason. So you let everyone believe I was defective. We thought rejection would keep ambitious alphas away. Emily's throat tightened. You protected me by teaching me I was unwanted? Mason had no answer. Adrian did. They were wrong. Emily turned toward him. Do not make this romantic just because you are my supposed mate. I was not going to. His reply was calm. They were wrong because protection without dignity is another kind of cage. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Emily felt the warmth beneath her necklace pulse again, softer now. She remembered every object Adrian's wolf had taken. The glove she wore while gathering winter herbs. The ribbon she tied around her hair. The handkerchief she carried every day. Objects saturated not with power, but with the ordinary scent of her life. Tell me the truth about the stealing, she said. Adrian looked almost uncomfortable. The first night, my wolf found your glove outside. He stole it from my porch. He considered that finding it. Emily folded her arms. Continue. Your scent quieted the curse. For several hours, I could think clearly again. The next night he returned without my permission. For my ribbon. Adrian nodded. Then the handkerchief. Then the comb. A reluctant warmth touched Emily's face. So the Alpha King lost an argument with his own wolf 7 nights in a row. One of the royal men suddenly became very interested in the creek. Adrian sighed. That is an unnecessarily accurate description. Emily almost smiled. Almost. And the scarf. His expression changed. He sensed your grief attached to it. He did not understand why. Only that it mattered. The moonflower? An apology. This time Emily did smile, faintly. Then she remembered the portraits. And those. Adrian's humor vanished. Proof that I failed to keep enough distance. He met her gaze without excuses. I should have asked permission to enter your life. Instead, I watched because I believed knowing you were safe was enough. Emily appreciated that he did not call it destiny. What happens now? Mason stepped forward. The bond has awakened. She must return to Silver Creek before it strengthens. Adrian did not even look at him. Emily decides where Emily goes. The simplicity of it silenced everyone. Emily studied the man who commanded territories yet stood several feet away because she had not invited him closer. Then she looked south, toward the village that had hidden her past, and north, toward a kingdom whose missing ruler had spent months trapped inside a white wolf. Dawn was beginning to pale the horizon. Emily reached into her coat and removed her mother's silver necklace. Adrian watched as she fastened it around her neck. I am not going back yet, she said. Mason inhaled sharply. Emily faced Adrian. And I am not following you because some bond says I belong to you. Adrian inclined his head. Then why? Emily held up Eleanor's unopened letters. Because my mother left me a truth, and somebody worked very hard to make sure I never found it. She stepped toward the northern trail. I am going to find out why. Emily had taken only 3 steps toward the northern trail when Adrian spoke behind her. Then I am coming with you. She turned. As my king. No. His answer came without hesitation. As the man who owes you several explanations and at least 7 stolen possessions. A quiet laugh escaped her before she could stop it. Dawn spread slowly through the birch grove, replacing silver moonlight with pale gold. Mason remained near the creek, looking older than he had an hour earlier. Emily, he said, if you leave with him, Silver Creek cannot protect you anymore. Emily looked toward the southern woods. Somewhere beyond those trees waited her little cottage, the general store, the meeting hall, and people who had known her since childhood yet allowed her to believe she was unwanted because it made their secret easier to keep. Maybe protection was never what I needed from Silver Creek. Mason lowered his gaze. Emily did not hate him. Somehow, that surprised her. She simply no longer needed his permission to understand herself. Adrian's royal companions approached, but he raised one hand, and they stopped several yards away. There is something you should see before we leave, he told Emily. He reached into the pocket of his coat and removed a folded piece of paper. Emily recognized it immediately. The final drawing from the hidden chamber. Herself beneath the full moon beside a dark-haired man. My mate. Adrian turned it over. More words covered the back. Emily had never seen them. If she ever finds this, tell her the choice must remain hers. Eleanor Carter. Emily's fingers trembled as she traced her mother's handwriting. She knew about the bond. Yes. And she trusted you. Adrian was quiet. She trusted me to give you something our world rarely gives Omegas when destiny becomes involved. A choice. He nodded. Emily looked at the portrait again. For years, she had imagined being chosen as the moment that would finally prove her worth. During the mating ceremony, she had stood beneath Silver Creek's lanterns waiting for someone to step forward. Nobody had. She remembered going home alone and wondering what was missing inside her. Now an Alpha King stood before her, and an ancient bond seemed to whisper that she belonged beside him. Strangely, neither fact mattered as much as it once would have. She finally understood that being chosen by someone else was not the same as choosing herself. What happens if I refuse the bond? She asked. One royal companion shifted uneasily, but Adrian remained still. Then I respect your decision, even if your curse returns. A pause. Even then, Emily searched his face for disappointment disguised as obligation. She found fear, certainly, but not pressure. And if I want time, you get time. If I want answers before anything else, you get answers. Emily smiled faintly. You are surprisingly reasonable for a wolf who breaks into windows. Adrian looked offended. The window was open. Once. That detail feels unnecessary. The royal men tried not to smile. Even Mason looked away to hide one. Emily reached into her coat and removed the faded blue scarf. Adrian's expression softened when he saw it. She held it toward him. You forgot to return this. He accepted it carefully, then offered it back with both hands. Emily Carter, may I return what my wolf stole? She took the scarf. You may. Adrian extended his hand, but stopped halfway, leaving the distance between them untouched. And may I walk with you? Emily looked at his hand. Not a command. Not a claim. Not destiny deciding for her. A question. She placed her hand in his. You may. Behind them, The first sunlight crossed the boundary stones of Silver Creek. Ahead, the northern road disappeared between the mountains toward a kingdom waiting for its lost Alpha King. Emily stepped forward beside Adrian, carrying her mother's letters and every unanswered question she had spent her life being told not to ask. After several yards, Adrian glanced at her. For the record, the comb was entirely my wolf's idea. Emily squeezed his hand once. Keep telling yourself that. Somewhere deep within him, she felt a warm, embarrassed presence retreat through their newly awakened bond. Emily laughed, and this time she did not silence herself. The rejected Omega walked north beneath the rising sun, not because a king had claimed her, not because an ancient bond had commanded her, but because the road was finally hers to choose.